Welcome to Unwinding with Support Group, a mental health podcast by licensed professionals where we discuss mental health topics from a real world perspective, all while having a drink. So hang out, have some laughs, enjoy the ride, and maybe learn a bit. Welcome back, everybody, to season 2 of Unwinding with the Support Group. I hope you all missed us because we missed you. But we're back for another fun season of mental health topics. And we're going to start the year off with our follow-up episode on veterans and mental health, like I promised last season. So with that, as a reminder, I'm Arlene. I have an LPC. And with me today, I have Jackie. She also works in the mental health field, and she is the founder of the Stay Chosen Foundation.
Hi. Was I supposed to say
Only
something else? I'm sorry.
only awkwardness happens around here. It's fine. If you're new to this, please know awkwardness is normal. Um,
So glad to
I,
be back. Was that better?
there you go. But
Okay,
glad
all
to.
right.
All right. I am drinking a Captain Morgan, just the regular rum with a cherry Coke today. And Jackie, what do you have for your
I
beverage?
have water. Not as exciting, but
Oh, as Alex likes to say, the most refreshing beverage there is.
life-sustaining,
Life
all
sustaining.
all the things.
All of the things. All right. Well, on that happy note, we are going to jump in and talk about veterans and go a little bit more into PTSD and some more modalities of therapy and, other fun topics along the way. So, Jackie, where you want to start?
Um, okay, so I guess what we could do is just kind of cover PTSD specifically for even though there's, combat PTSD, and then there's also other reasons like just environmental factors in general that can cause high levels of stress. So I guess we can kind of just like cover what that looks like for veterans, especially maybe family members who might be seeing a change in behavior, what to look for, and things of that sort. I don't know if you
Okay.
want to jump in or
So,
if you want me to.
well, I think what's important is for most people when they think of veterans and PTSD, and I know we talked about this a little bit before in our last episode, they generally think of combat PTSD. It's what I think the society is generally just going, oh yes, veterans PTSD. That's the association. Um, but I think it's important that you recognize there are other forms of PTSD that veterans can have. And it might be look a little different. It's
Yeah,
still
absolutely.
PTSD, but it might look a bit different.
Yeah, because there's the combat PTSD, which I think it's like 2% of veterans are combat veterans. So I mean it's pretty low in comparison to the whole veteran population, right? And then there's, like you said, other types of PTSD. It could be from um like a sexual trauma or even just having PTSD before or some form of a mental health diagnosis before enlisting in the military. So there's that piece as well. But in like a general term for PTSD, it's typically like they have those like cluster symptoms of like re-experiencing flashbacks, nightmares, or distressing memories and stuff, or reminders, avoidance and numbing. Um, so typically like withdrawal or maybe a limited range of emotions. I feel like I sound like the DSM-5 right now. And then sorry, and then like hyperarousal, so might be like trouble concentrating or exaggerated trouble response or startle response, sleep disturbances, anxiety, panic, um, things of that sort. I don't know if there's anything that you would want to add to that.
Um, I think the startle response, hypervigilance are other things to like add in as well.
Yeah, and I think also to that, and we touched on this a little bit in the last episode, that not the last one, but the one we did regarding veterans, is that it looks different for different people. So these could be like, I think these symptoms come across textbook, or people have a certain image in their head due to media and a lot of movies or books or whatever. Um, that, a flashback specifically looks this way. If somebody is reliving this experience, they're not here type thing, or the thousand-yard stare. And those things could be happening, but sometimes they also look a lot different, just even disorganization or unable to hold down a job, or struggling with holding down a job, irritability, things of that sort, could be definitely be symptoms of PTSD as well. Um, Disassociation, stuff like that.
I think disassociation is an important part to identify. Not because it's directly say like, oh, hey, PTSD is happening, but it's an avoidance tactic, right?
Hmm.
I'm feeling intense emotions and I'm gonna check out. Um, it's becomes a coping mechanism, which for PTSD, there's quite a few coping mechanisms that are unhealthy that people tend to fall into.
Yeah,
That,
because
but disassociation is one of them.
yeah, and disassociation has like different, there's different behaviors that people will engage in while doing said thing, right? It's not specifically just sitting there and you're kind of like off, like daydreaming or appear to be so. Like it could be intentionally choosing to do other things to separate your, emotional attachment to whatever thing that could be causing that response, if how I'm wording that makes sense.
I think the best way I can describe it for other people who haven't experienced it is your body is on autopilot. So you
Hmm.
could go through daily life and not be present
There we go.
because your brain has checked the fuck out. But because you're doing mundane tasks that you always do, you are focusing on like just doing those things. Your brain knows how to do them, so it'll just do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect way to explain that. So, um, yeah, I think just like going through those symptoms, or like things that could be recognized, especially again for family members, because I know that when my brother, who when he served in the Operation Enduring Freedom, when he came back from Afghanistan, both my brothers, it was like you could tell something was wrong, but because we weren't um, given any tools or educated on like anything to really necessarily look for, um, we didn't really know what it was, right? Until things got pretty extreme, because that's what happens. I feel like when somebody is struggling with any form of mental health issues, is it's manageable, then it becomes a little dysfunctional. It's like, it's this balancing act of trying to manage your dysfunction until it's just completely dysfunctional. And then it's like, whoa. So, um, I think that being able to recognize some of the small signs and stuff like that can help yourself or a loved one know when to get help before things become super unmanageable and we start getting into those negative coping skills that you were mentioning before. That can be very dangerous, because a lot of times it's like risk taking behaviors. Some people are looking for adrenaline because they might be have like a limited range of motion or super numb, because most of the time it's the amygdala that is like firing off like crazy with people who have PTSD or anxiety. So, but if you are, to protect yourself, if your brain is shutting down and you're feeling numb, you might need more arousal, so you're doing more risky things, or even substance use too, because of the fentanyl that is in a lot of the drugs now, not just opiates. A lot of people are overdosing. So, a lot of dangerous stuff.
I want to give some examples of risky behavior for people to identify. It can be speeding,
Mm-hmm.
right? It can be going really, really fast. And I don't just mean like 5, 10 miles over the speed limit. I mean like 30, 40 miles down over the speed limit on a regular, consistent basis. Like that's risky, right? It can be having risky sexual encounters, right? Being promiscuous in ways that are risky. Um, you know, like intentionally doing that. Those are risky behaviors. So being able to look at risk looks different ways for different people. Now, if someone was promiscuous before and they slept around before they went and joined the military and they maintained that behavior in the military, that's not then going to be risky behavior for them when they return. That's going to be normal. So being able to identify what a baseline behavior is versus then, oh, this looks risky, that's like knowing that. And, like being able to say those things of like, okay, right, this person has multiple partners, like, and as long as it's all consensual, no problems. If that's their baseline, that's their baseline. If it's not, and they return and they're all of a sudden sleeping with the entire town, that's maybe a sign of something wrong.
Yeah, and I think like you said, it's anything outside of the norm. And and again too, it's also like has to, I guess this is kind of subjective, so um I'm going to say this with caution, but it also, I would caution people to like understand that it should be maladaptive too, right? Because I think there's so many times people will like, oh, I have this symptom, or I have this, or I have that, right? We talked about kind of like, self-diagnosing. I think you even have an episode on it. And there's a difference
Mhm.
between having, like, yeah, you might exhibit certain things or certain patterns or whatever, but if it's not maladaptive to your life, meaning it's not actually causing a problem, and again, that's subjective because there's a lot of people who will deny that there's a problem, you know what I mean? But then there's also people who overreact, like, so keeping that in mind when being like when paying attention to certain behavior of like, because it's also like you said, like someone might have been, a little promiscuous beforehand and, they're continuing that behavior before. Now, somebody who's just not like that in general might have always been like, hey, you shouldn't do that. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's a problem in their life, right? But if they
Right,
were, that goes against their value system from how they always
right.
were, and it is distressful, then yes, that's something that raises
Yeah.
concern.
Which is also why I said it might be,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
depending on what they experienced in the military, they might have life-changing experiences that
Hmm.
now just change their perspective. And so
Absolutely.
while I'm saying might be an indicator of a
Yeah.
problem. So none of the things that I've said are guaranteed, like, hey, because you're doing 90 on the freeway, you clearly are engaging in risky behavior, you have PTSD. Maybe why are we engaged? Why are we always driving 90 on the freeway? Might be like, are we missing something else?
Yeah.
You know, type
90
of
on the
thing.
freeway is bad? No, I'm just
I mean,
kidding. Subjective.
subjective.
All right,
And
fine,
I said
85.
always. I said always.
So 90 on the freeway when there's
Occasionally,
traffic is
occasionally. Listen, you're
yeah,
talking to me who occasionally does 90. Like,
I'm like sitting there
um, I'm sorry, I have somewhere to go and you guys are all in my way.
like move.
There's a song by Ludacris that always fits that situation.
Need to add that to the playlist, God.
Mhm.
Yeah, so okay, so yeah, so those are some things definitely to look out for. Is there anything that you think that would also be helpful for people to know, whether it's they're going through it as an individual or family or even another clinician that might be helping assist a veteran that's not necessarily um in working for the VA or
Yeah,
is whatever.
somebody just out there.
Yeah. Hello.
Um, Somebody just out there doing their thing. I think the biggest thing I can say, in general is every symptom that you have stated is something that people experience after every traumatic event. Now, they don't experience all of them, like as you said, but if you experience any traumatic event, you will experience some of those symptoms, right? In the short term. And so being able to identify that if the traumatic event has been recent, experiencing those symptoms is normal. It's where we come back to the maladaptive part, and it's been happening for at least 6 months.
Yes, yes. I
You
think that is
haven't moved
so important to
through
hit
it.
that.
Yeah, you
Yes.
haven't moved through it. You haven't been able to come out the other side. It's still lingering. It's still there, right? Where we're talking about those nightmares or, right, that exaggerated startle response where you always feel like you're on guard. Um, Anything that reminds you of it, you have intense emotional responses. Now we're
Yeah, and
moving
it's
into a
like,
PTSD range.
yes, because again, it's, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people get confused is that trauma does not equate to PTSD. Obviously, yes, people have PTSD, went through a traumatic experience or multiple, but just because you had a traumatic experience does not mean that you have PTSD. So there's a difference, and it depends on like how it impacts your level of functioning and like how much it is really of disrupting your life and well-being. I think that was super important that you hit that because I feel like because a lot of this information is accessible, that there's
Mhm.
and now it's to we'll say the lay person or civilian, like people are getting diagnosed with PTSD and stuff like that. That a lot of people now, it's like automatically they experience some form of trauma, which again is subjective to the individual, that it's like, oh, PTSD. And that is not really not the case, because if that was, then everybody would have PTSD and therefore it would not be abnormal. And
Right. It would be normal.
yeah, so therefore it wouldn't be a thing and we wouldn't be talking today. Hi.
Hey,
Hi.
hey. But no, 100%.
I want everyone to know that you just looked at me all creepy when you did
I did.
that.
100%. Extra creepy.
Super creepy. I have PTSD now. All right, I'm done being a dick. I promised I wasn't going to be one today. I made a promise with
Ah,
myself.
oh, broke a promise to yourself already.
I know. My New Year's resolution was to not be late, and the first day I was late, and I was like, "Well, we'll try again next year."
Okay, first of all, I don't know why you made that your New Year's resolution.
Because it was simple. Well, I thought it was anyways.
Have
Oh,
you met you?
God, let's not go there. It's too, that's a, a very philosophical question right
That's
now.
a loaded question. We don't have time for that one on
We
this
really
episode.
don't. No, we don't. I'm here to help people. We're not unpacking my shit.
For those who don't know, Jackie can't be on time anywhere.
I mean, what is time though? Like
It's a construct.
exactly, in the great words of Einstein, t time is man-made, so everything doesn't happen at once. So
Perfect.
there's your philosophy for the day.
Everybody's like, what the fuck just happened? Welcome to this podcast. If this is your first time,
Season 2, bitches. Go back and replay the others. All right. So, okay, so
it's same here.
thanks for being with us this far. Um, but yeah, so okay, so we kind of went through like some of the symptoms and things to look out for and stuff. So, um, treatment. So go ahead, alphabet person. Why don't you name off some things and then I have some stuff that I can talk
Um,
about too.
the number one treatments out there for PTSD are EMDR and prolonged exposure. Not every trauma can be treated with PE. However, in terms of what we are discussing for veterans, these traumas can. Singular events, type of things, even if we're talking about combat trauma over extended periods of time, there are singular events that can be treated. Sexual traumas, environmental traumas, things of this nature can be treated with PE. And actually, it actually started with veterans, if we're going to be honest. So prolonged exposure is a great place. I'm not saying EMDR isn't, but EMDR is also an option. And more people in this field use EMDR than prolonged exposure. But prolonged exposure is also very effective.
Yeah, I feel like it's
And
listed as the
there's,
most effective.
yeah.
Now, could you explain for, somebody who's not familiar with any of this stuff, what would that look like going into a session, to start that type of therapy? Obviously like establishing the certain coping skills and your safe place and all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
For prolonged exposure, um, you do exposures.
No way.
Crazy. Um, some in person, but that's usually done as homework. Places that are traditionally safe, but because of the traumatic event are no longer feel safe. Combat trauma, that's a little bit different because we're probably not going back to wherever that happened. But there are still other things that can be added into, because usually there's things we avoid doing. So those things get put on the list. Like if we're not playing with our kids like the way we used to, or going to social events like the way we used to, those things get added to that list. But prolonged exposure in a nutshell is identifying a start place in your trauma that is before everything shit to bed, essentially, and an end place in the traumatic memory of like where you feel safe again. So you have a start place and an end place. And in the session, you walk through that narrative, eyes closed, in first person, like it's happening now, not like as you're remembering it. And as much as you can remember, because not everybody remembers all the details, just common. So as much as you can remember, the therapist at that point is it's quiet. They're more of just hey, where's your distress level kind of thing, checking in, support, reminding you we are safe. You get to the end, and this is where the prolonged part comes back in. You start again, and you do that as many times as your hour allows. The part I didn't say is that you, the client, record this. At the end of how many ever times have time to go through it, you and your therapist do some processing about what happened, what you learned, what you gained. Um, and then you stop recording, and you know what your homework is. So your next session next week, listening to that recording every day. Because when we avoid speaking and talking and about our trauma, we've developed unhealthy thoughts patterns.
Hmm.
And so by walking through it again, we're able to break that, but we are also able to break the emotional attachment that we have to a memory by
Hmm.
processing it again. And it's hard, and it takes commitment because you have to show up every week, because it's not something you can take lightly. But 12 to 14 sessions is about all it takes. And the super cool thing about it is most people, when they've done a course of PE, no longer meet diagnostic criteria for PTSD.
Which is an incredible thing.
Yeah, which is
So
super cool thing about it.
yeah, absolutely. So now, would you say that, because one of the things too that I think is helpful nowadays for a lot of veterans seeking treatment is that they don't just have to go to the VA, even though the VA obviously is an option. But there are places that like if you still just have like TRICARE, that like there
Mhm.
are private clinicians that accept TRICARE.
Yeah,
Would you say that a lot of clinicians are trained in prolonged exposure, or that's
there are
something that they need
more
to?
clinicians trained in EMDR,
Hmm.
which is still a great viable option for trauma.
Yeah, because the conceptually it's desensitization essentially, like you said, like
Very
kind of letting,
similar, just different
yeah.
approaches.
Hmm.
So recognizing that not as many people in prolonged exposure, um, and there's a lot of philosophy reasoning behind why therapists don't necessarily get behind exposure therapy in general.
Hmm.
And, I don't necessarily agree, obviously, because I do exposure therapy.
Hmm.
Um, I've found so much benefit and success with people doing prolonged exposure and exposure therapy, for anxiety disorders and things of that nature, that, the evidence speaks for itself. That, it sounds hard. It is hard, but it's not torture, despite what my children think that I do for a living.
mean, absolutely not. I mean, one of the things too, just even from a personal experience for me, I did not do prolonged exposure therapy, but I know when I have been given assignments and stuff related to trauma in my own therapy process, there was a lot of avoidance. And it was actually another client that had said to me, when I was in treatment that it was like, because I'm like, yeah, it's too much. Like, I'm not doing all that. And it's like, well, how's it too much? Like, you deal with it every day, you know? And that was, a big shift in perspective. As simple as it sounds, it was like kind of a fuck you moment. Like, oh yeah, I guess you're right, you know? So,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, if you're living with it every day, regardless of the avoidance, you're aware of what you're avoiding, then, you know, it does take work to be ready to heal from things and it gets messy. And that's why coping skills are super important, and also using coping skills that actually work for you. I talk about this with my clients probably daily because there's so many people who kind of just regurgitate things or say things that they are like, okay, that sounds good. Like that's what I should be doing, but it's not effective, you know, because it's not for you. And coping skills can really be anything. You know, and there's even some negative coping skills that like you might have to lean on, like eating junk food because you had a shit day, like whatever. Obviously, it's not the healthiest coping skill, but you know, you might need to use that. Like, fuck, I had therapy, so I'm slamming a pizza or whatever, you
Listen, I
know?
had therapy today and it was rough, and I'm getting ice cream.
Yeah, whatever, you know?
Why? Because I deserve it.
Exactly. And you know, and there's even some, you know, some science behind that because with you know, eating and swallowing, it stimulates the vagus nerve, which therefore calms you down. That's why I like the deep breathing and, you know, abdominal breathing helps calm you down. So there's a reason why a lot of people gravitate towards food when they're stressed. And sometimes that's what you need to do. I'm not saying eat a pint of ice cream every day, but you
Or a
know,
whole pizza every day.
yeah,
No, that's not what's
that might be a
that's not it.
lot, but you know, it might be necessary for the days that you have therapy or something of that sort. But there's so yeah, so there's that modality of treatment. Is there any other ones that you
When it comes to trauma, these are your there are other modalities, but there are none that I would recommend for trauma. Like not
mm,
like if you're gonna do the big work, right? If
so
we're gonna talk about, okay, I just not a function, I just gotta get through.
mm,
That's a different ball game.
okay.
Right? If we're just talking about like, I'm not ready to do the big heavy lifting, right? I'm not ready to open Pandora's box. I'm not ready to jump in there, then sure, there are other therapies. But if we're just like, yes, I need to address my trauma, those are them.
Mm,
But if we're talking about like right now, today, I have this fucking problem right in front of me. And yeah, I know over here in left field is my is my trauma. But that bitch gotta stay there because I got other fucking problems. Then yeah, there's other
mm,
modalities.
okay. So there was a few things that I thought would be helpful to mention if you're cool with me nerding out a little bit on some neuroscience.
Nerd
Um,
out.
all right, let's run it. So, I believe I mentioned this in the last veteran episode, but so I was part of a neurobehavioral lab at Western, and so there was some couple researchers that did a presentation for us that were researching um PTSD, TBIs, and stuff like that. The Center of Excellence, I believe, in Texas is one of the three VA research facilities. And so one of the things that they have found, for one, like they talked about PTSD, and they also had mentioned that just over 300,000 service members returned from the Iraq and Afghanistan war with TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, and found that many had mild TBIs. So now we're talking about inflammation of the brain and stuff like that too. And if the brain is constantly inflamed, that's also going to add to the struggle of healing. So that might be why you might be exhibiting, or a person in this scenario might be exhibiting these symptoms, but medication, therapies, and stuff like that aren't necessarily working because there's another, we'll say, organic piece that's going on. So, if you do have a TBI or did, experience even like some form of injury, but maybe didn't get diagnosed with a TBI because there's a lot of times people will have mild injury and they don't necessarily have it on their record. I think it's important to address that piece too because they are finding that the thymosin beta 4 um, is actually like it can enter the blood-brain barrier, and it reduces inflammation, which then can also help with some of the symptoms they may be experiencing. The other thing too that they had mentioned, which I know me and you had a discussion on, is transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. Some people may have already heard of it because it is effective. It's mostly studied for OCD, addiction, mainly depression, and they are finding like 60%, I think, right now is the literature that experience a lot of like reduced symptoms and stuff like that. And it's not like an invasive thing. So it's where they take like an electromagnetic coil and they like hold it against your skull. Mainly they focus on the prefrontal cortex, but there's other areas too. And it delivers magnetic pulses to stimulate specific neurons in like specific regions of the brain. So we were talking earlier about the amygdala, right, which is responsible for memory, like some memory, and emotional response, and like it looking for threats in order to ignite the sympathetic nervous system, like that fight or flight, right? So when we were talking about PTSD and how the essentially the amygdala is just constantly firing off, they have found that using TMS for PTSD there is helpful. It is most effective being used with like we'll just call it light exposure therapy. Because one thing that I think that a lot of people at least have reported um, s struggling with is the willingness that you were talking about, right? So if it's like, oh, okay, so you're just going to take this little electromagnetic coil and just, place it on my skull or whatever, and I get to kind of just chill, even, and if I'm going to put finger quotes around that, they might have more of a willingness to participate in that. And then if those neurons are getting healed or however way you want to word it, then there might be more willingness to participate in the other type of therapies. So there's that. And
I
most of the
will,
time,
I will
mhm.
tell you that most clients I know that have done TMS report exhaustion.
Yeah, like there is some symptoms with it. So
Like I know,
that,
like it's like it's hard on the body. Like exhaustion is like the primary symptom most people experience. So
yeah.
like I think it's important to just like note that because there's your brain's doing a lot of work.
Hmm.
Like, it's not just like you're sitting there chilling, getting a tan
Yeah.
in your brain. Like there's a lot of work happening. And when there's a lot of mental energy being used, it's exhausting. And so I think it's important to like know ahead of time.
Absolutely, because I mean, what it's doing, like the literally the mechanism of action is it's stimulating neurons, right? So in certain areas that are responsible for very important pieces, right? Your brain is doing all kinds of stuff and sending all kinds of signals to other parts of your body, and the list goes on and on. So there are side effects, but most of the time it's like that the pros outweigh the cons because they're
Yeah.
not significant. Like it might be like you said, exhaustion. I've also heard of like headaches and stuff like that. So yeah, and again, knowledge is power, so understanding what could happen also will reduce anxiety as well. And it is one of those things where from my understanding, because I know that there's a lot of outpatient with it,
It's
it is a
usually outpatient.
yeah, it is accessible, but it's most effective if it's done daily for like I think is it like 6 weeks or something from
It's
my
like
understanding
6, yeah.
again. So in lab versus actual like clinical practice are two separate things as well. So
Yeah.
I should notate that. It's a lot different when you're studying something versus when you're actually putting it into practice. Which kind of goes into the other thing too, that veterans do have more access to in the sense compared to civilians, is psychedelic assisted therapy. Um, specifically psilocybin. Oh my God, I always say that wrong. And MDMA. And because I'm like mushrooms, but whatever. And MDMA. It's not the first line of treatment, but there's a lot of positive benefits that they're finding. And so if you are a veteran, you could ask to participate in a clinical trial for that. I haven't really heard anything negative about it. And I believe there is, I think it's MDMA. From the last I heard of it before I graduated, it was in like the last steps of getting FDA approved. So it might even be FDA approved at this point. I just don't want to give the false information out there for that. Um, so there is that piece. Um,
I will also add,
mhm.
there's also promising information on ketamine assisted therapy for trauma as well. But again, every therapy that we just noted is done with a trained professional who understands microdosing, because that's what's happening,
Yeah, this
and
is
how much to
microdosing.
give you. So just because you decided to trip doesn't mean you did the therapy.
Yes, yes. Okay. I think it's very important to note because I understand that there's a lot of like spiritual philosophy behind psychedelics, and I'm not
Yes.
going to have a comment on that either way because that's a totally separate piece. So
That's
we're speaking
different. No.
clinical. Yeah.
Yes.
So you're not going to have a cathartic spiritual entity, whatever type thing. It's not that type of experience. You're not getting
No.
high. That's not what it is. It's microdosing. And when I say micro, a big hands on the micro. And
It's a big, big underline, capital, circle, a micro, bolded actually.
yes. And you're going into a clinical space where it's, these things
Where you will
are
be monitored, where you are
yes.
followed. Like all of these things are done in a way to keep you safe, to
Hmm.
ensure you don't have negative responses and reactions, and that you are like, this is going the right way.
Yeah, because there's also the other thing too when it comes to mental health, because there's other pieces, right? Because you could have, or a person could have PTSD, and then they could also have some other underlying issue. So if somebody's experiencing mental health symptom, like negative symptoms from a mental health disorder, the last thing I would ever recommend is doing some form of psychedelic, you know, uh, trip. I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to find a proper way to word it, but like
I
basically
would
like,
not encourage, if you have like co-occurring disorders,
mm,
that any of the like MDMA,
yeah.
psilocybin, or ketamine treatments are for you. There's just too many like things happening and too many like potentials to go
And
wrong.
yeah, there's potentials, there's unknowns, the risk factors and pieces like that. So that's why, so yeah, these are, and there are, you know, just as there's qualifying pieces, there's disqualifying pieces. So that's why it's
Yes.
important to like speak with your practitioner, if that's a route you're going to go. And again, it's not the first line of treatment. Typically, it's for people who are not responsive to
Yes.
other forms of treatment. But it is showing a lot of promise. So there is that. And then, but yeah, I would not recommend just being like, okay, like I'm just going to go buy some mushrooms off a buddy and trip because that's a whole other,
Yeah, you're going
again,
to get a different experience.
yeah, that's not the
It
same
might still
experience.
be beneficial,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be therapeutic.
Yeah, and it's because I do know of some people who have like there's retreats that you can go on
Yeah.
with shamans and stuff, but you also have to be careful with stuff like that because there are people who are like, yeah, I'm a shaman and it's there's a difference in,
They're not.
Western cultures biting off of Eastern cultures or
Yes.
whatever way you want to word it. That's why I'm trying to avoid going too much down that
No, I
space.
think it's just better like
But
understanding that like what we're going down is strictly from a clinical therapeutic perspective.
mhm.
And yes, in cases of taking mushroom, there is other benefits that may occur, and there are also other risks. And most people, if you don't know that, do your own research.
Yeah, for sure. And it's,
Ask
you
the
know,
Google
and be
or
careful
the
with your
Chat
sources.
GPT.
And be careful with those sources, and also understand that just because something might have a benefit for certain things does not mean, or it can mean, that's where the awareness is huge. It might not be the right time for you. Or it could be, you know what I mean? But if we were talking about the hypervigilance, all that kind of stuff, and if these things are super causing a lot of dysfunction, I would not,
This, no, this
I
is
would
not
not
the
jump
thing
into
for
that.
you.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, definitely not. And But speaking of holistic practices, there are a lot of things to consider when it comes to that, though, as far as like things that, let's say that you call, you make an appointment. We all know that it's really hard to get mental health treatment right now, or it might be like, a month waiting period. And that can be really difficult when life feels very overwhelming. And there are things that you can do on your own as you wait, or just maybe whatever, just that might be your decision that you want to do it this way. Maybe certain things weren't working for you. But one of the most important things that I think a lot of people neglect is obviously the whole diet and exercise everybody talks about. But sleep, like I think sleep is mo the most important, because everything is dysregulated if your sleep is disrupted.
Now, if you're having chronic nightmares, here's your tip. This is nightmare therapy 101. Free therapy, everybody. If you're having PTSD nightmares or chronic nightmares, and it's the same repetitive nightmare, when you wake up, you write the nightmare down, but halfway through, you change it so that it doesn't end in the traumatic way, or if it's just another nightmare, in the scary way, so that you have a completely different outcome, one that isn't so traumatic. Then you read that when you wake up and before you go to bed every fucking day, because you're not changing your memories, you're changing the emotional connection your subconscious has. Your memories still exist. You're just allowing your subconscious to process in daylight different ways. This works. This therapy was developed with, let me tell you who, veterans. It works. So if this is you or you know someone, this is what works to help you get rid of nightmares, especially PTSD nightmares, so that you can get some sleep.
And some other things that you can do too, because I'm glad you brought up that point. Um, is So the brain creates associations with things, right? So that's why people talk about like having routine, right? Routine is super important, kind of setting, a rough bedtime, right? So like let's say you're like, you know what? Okay, I should be asleep by 10 p.m. every night. By 8 p.m., you should have some kind of routine set that your body can associate with, oh, I'm getting ready to settle down now, right? So like give yourself roughly 2 hours to start unwinding, whether that's to disconnect from, a lot of people talk about disconnecting from tech. That's because the blue light and a lot of the technology disrupts melatonin production, which is used for sleep, or produced for sleep. So getting rid of the screens and stuff like that, maybe reading a book, maybe taking a hot shower or something like that, bath, whatever it is that relaxes you, start doing that. Try to make the environment that you're sleeping in a little bit colder, because in order to fall, like as you fall into a deeper sleep, your core temperature drops. So if you can set the temperature a little bit colder, it might help you go to sleep. And if you repeatedly do this and make it a routine, and then wake up at the same time every day, even if you're tired, you can reset your circadian rhythm so your hormones start getting regulated and all these things start working, the way they should, if you will, pending there's no other, health conditions and stuff like that. Again, eating healthier, I would avoid sugar at night, especially if there is like, I have read some things, and maybe you would know too, Arlene, that, if you have sugar before going to sleep, that can induce like weird dreams and stuff like that as well. So like processed foods and stuff, try to avoid that before going to bed. I'd be mindful of what content you're ingesting before going to bed. Like I probably wouldn't read a Stephen King book or I don't know, maybe not watch the news lately before going to sleep. Um, that's a nightmare in itself, but we won't go there.
The other thing, sleep allows your body and your mind to heal,
Hmm.
right? And so you have more tolerance for things throughout the day when you sleep. So it's why it's important. It's
Exactly.
not fixing
I
our problems,
no.
but it's helping you have more tolerance for the rest of the bullshit every day because you have reset that.
Yeah, and you're not adding to, I don't know any other way to word it, but like you're not adding to the current baggage that you have if you have a higher threshold for your current life stressors, because life is just stressful in general, PTSD or not. So as long as you're not adding to the stuff that you're kind of carrying around with you, and I feel like that goes for anybody
Yeah.
walking this wonderful earth, if you can have, like, that's why people talk about mindfulness and deep breathing and ways to, limit your stress is because, it has you don't want to add to, you know,
Yeah.
and sleep is super important. It's important for the whole wellness wheel that those like modalities talk about, because if one thing's off, that wheel is not, it's not turning correctly. It's always going to be off balance. And so that's the first thing I always talk about with people, like when they're having issues or coming up, because I work more so with substance use, but a lot of times you know, the underlying problem with substance use is trauma. And so I ask about sleep, like, what is your sleep like? And that's also goes for people who are working third shift, right? Like you have to adapt your sleep schedule to what your lifestyle is, but keep it consistent. Otherwise, I mean, that also weakens your immune system, all kinds of things. And in turn, like just it definitely adds to how significant the symptoms you are having. It adds to it. It amplifies it if your sleep is off.
For sure. I think it's important. I know you've talked about food. Um,
Hmm.
and this doesn't have to be 3 meals a day, but it needs to be like two, right? Like I'm not saying you gotta eat breakfast if you're not a breakfast person or lunch, but like two square meals a day, two good meals and some snacking, cool. But you gotta put solid shit in your body, like solid foods. You gotta eat consistently. One meal a day isn't gonna cut it.
Drink some fucking water. That's huge.
I mean, even when it's not your favorite thing in the world, like me, drink water.
You can, and
Good for you.
you can make it more
Listen, drink
enjoyable.
water. It is a misconception that you have to drink 8 glasses of water a day.
No, no,
That's
no, no.
not real,
No, it's
but
not.
just drink water.
I'm grabbing some water right now as we speak. No, okay.
Listen to
Can I
me.
just say, because it irritates me about this, actually, because you talk about that misconception. If you're just drinking a bunch of water, understand that our water is purified for the most part, even bottled water. Okay. It's filtered. It is not spring water or has all the minerals and stuff like that. So you're just pissing out your vitamins and minerals and replacing it with essentially purified water. Drink when you're thirsty, not, you know,
Or else.
like, oh,
Thirsty.
I'm going to have
I
my
must drink my gallon of water today.
how ridiculous do those have you seen that skit with George Carlin when he's making fun
Yes,
of people walking around with the water bottle and they have like those giant fucking what are the I don't even know, it's like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., like whatever. Like,
yes.
thank you for reminding me I'm a fucking failure. Fuck you and your water bottle, you know. But anyways,
Also,
drink
just drink water when you're
just
thirsty. Just drink
yeah,
some water throughout the day, a glass
yeah.
of water, a bottle of water. Put some water in your body. Your body will thank you.
Yep. Be mindful of supplements. Yes, their vitamins are good for you, but you can get most of them from Whole Foods. The supplement industry is not something that's regulated, so all the guys with the no shirts on YouTube, um, eating raw meat and stuff like that, saying you gotta,
No, no, we're not doing the carnivore diet. We're not doing it. That's not good for
liver and
you.
honey, please,
That's
all
not
day.
good for you guys. The carnivore diet is not good for you. Okay. You
Matt.
need some veggies. You need some greens. You need a whole thing. Listen, eat meat, but also maybe some green beans. Have a salad. I don't know, maybe a tomato. Throw some things in there. Okay.
You you can have all the liver you want. Just make sure you have it in a salad. But yeah, and balance, obviously it's not like,
The carnivore diet fucking kills me. Sorry.
what kills me is the people like, why is your shirt off, bro? Like you had to turn the camera on and everything. Like, you know what I'm
Okay, the
talking about?
carnivore diet, like you're just gonna eat nothing but meat all the time.
With
You
liver
don't
and eggs.
occasionally
Or
just
no, sorry,
want
it's butter and eggs too, isn't it? Butter, eggs, and meat.
just meat. It's just meat. I don't want just meat all the time. Maybe I'm weird, but I like it. I go like meat. I just don't want it.
I could be a vegetarian before I could do the carnivore diet. I could be a
And I
vegetarian
will
before that.
not be a vegetarian because I want steak.
Yeah, I'm not saying I am. I'm not saying I'm
I
gonna
know.
go do that. I definitely could not be a vegan. The fuck?
Okay, but I'm
Sorry
just
to the
saying
vegans
there's
out there. I'm
no
not trying,
way I could
but
do
I'm
that.
saying that over carnivore, I could be a vegetarian for sure.
I fucking agree. Like, listen, humans are omnivores for a reason, guys. Eat all the things.
Yes, and yeah, so eat whole food. I just our conversations always get so fucking weird, man.
Welcome to this podcast. We go
Yeah.
places.
But yeah, so
Where
whole
we go, we
foods,
just go
good
places.
sleep, 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Studies show that 6 hours or less or over 9 hours on a consistent basis takes years off your life. I'm just as bad. I'm preaching to the choir, so I'm not trying to add to anybody else's stress, but that's just what it is. Um,
If your life says 6 hours of sleep and that's what you get, take your 6 hours of sleep and
yes,
run with
yes,
it.
yes. So definitely like do what works for you too. And exercise as well. That does not have to be like it's whatever's going to get you moving your body around. Like it does not have to be this like whole gym routine. I think that becomes very overwhelming for people. If it makes you feel good, then do it. But if you're just like, I'm going to take my dog on a walk, or I'm going to walk around the office building a few times, or whatever works, like, that's helpful too. Just getting up and moving around, even chores, whatever, is really good for you. Trying to socialize as much as you can to like combat that isolation or withdraw, hanging around positive people, positive support, um kind of identifying who your safe people are that have your best interests at heart too, knowing who you can reach out to. There's a plethora of support groups, if that's your thing. Some people don't like group activities, but maybe you would. There's there's a lot of vet peer organizations. So if you feel like you would connect better with other veterans, there's a lot of nonprofits that can help connect you to veteran resources specifically. A lot of VAs have some form of like a veteran coordinator, navigator type thing, or your community mental health will have some kind of veteran navigator that can help connect you to free resources, especially if you're food insecure or housing insecure, all that kind of stuff. There is resources out there. You just have to find your local VA or community mental health facility. Um, Transportation's available to a lot of veterans too, to help you get to these appointments and stuff like that. So it's really what I would encourage people to do overall, is throughout this process, even while you're working on, like, let's say you're even getting started to do exposure therapy or some form of a modality to treat trauma, is to look into the 8 dimensions of wellness and figure out how you need to balance each piece. Because I feel like the key to anything, when it comes to healing in life is having a balance and figuring out where things fit.
I also want to be back with while we talked about treating trauma and understanding what it is, if you aren't ready, that doesn't mean you have to avoid therapy, right? I mentioned that if you have life stressors, therapy works or other modalities, right? There are other things, you can problem solve with someone else, right? Someone who's not emotionally connected to your life, who can provide perspective, or you can just, I don't know, yell at because life sucks sometimes, right? And someone you can just have an unbiased opinion for. And so just recognizing like you can develop a relationship with somebody so that when you get ready, you feel safe enough with that person to open that box. You don't
Yeah, which
have
I
to already be ready to do that.
absolutely. I think that's a really important point to bring up because I mean, let's be real here. Most people aren't ready, or they might feel like they're ready and they're like, whoa, never mind, right? And so, and it's
Fuck, they were
awkward too.
probably ready till I described prolonged exposure. Then, like, fuck you, never
Yeah,
do that
right.
shit.
I'm out this bitch, you know? That sounds like a lot of the times I started therapy. So, yeah, I'll call you when it's time to reschedule. But, anyways, so
Ghosted.
peace. But, I, I think it's important too for like, because a lot of people aren't just going to be ready to jump into stuff like that. And so developing that rapport first. And most of like I don't think any clinician is going to jump right into that. Like I said, you kind of have to like establish,
They
your
should not.
yeah. So they're normally going to like establish like, first of all, some background. You might not have any coping skills or grounding techniques. You might need to learn that stuff first. Like, so you're not going to go into therapy and it's going to be like, here's your intake, boom, this is what you're doing. So like just to like kind of preface that, because that might have sounded intimidating, but I feel like we kind of explained that in the beginning. Um, and then also like that's kind of why I wanted to mention those holistic things too, because you might feel like, okay, like I don't have these issues, or maybe they're not as extreme, but I know that there's certain things that I need to add for my life to be more fulfilling or less stressful, or however way you want to word it.
And transitioning from military life to civilian life
Is stressful.
can be just a reason enough to talk to someone else
Hmm.
because that's
It should be.
it's a
It
big adjustment.
yes,
And
and
so understanding that, that's a
abs
big enough reason to walk into somebody's door. Like, hey, I have been deployed 3 separate times to 3 separate countries, and now I'm supposed to just, I don't know, go to the PTA. Explain this to me.
so one thing too, and I don't want to mislead anybody, but from my understanding, there's also, and it's optional. And this is for like active service members,
Yeah,
maybe getting ready to transition out, but it's called Onward Ops, which is like an optional program that you can sign up for that helps with the transition process. And I would just say from what I have witnessed personally, that and again, everybody's different because everybody that I know that has served was a combat veteran, so it's different. But if there's a resource, take advantage of it. Use it. If you end up not needing it, then you don't need it. You put it away. But if it's there, take advantage of it, because every person I've seen when it came to the transition piece, because there is a whole, it's a whole lifestyle change,
yeah.
and that is stressful. And so I
Mhm.
think everybody could benefit from um a little assistance with transitioning. Because
That's
it
why I bring it up. It's a lot.
yeah, it is.
And
It is a lot.
and your loved ones may not always understand.
Hmm.
They're excited for you to be home and they want you to be excited to be home. And I mean, you kind of are, but also you're kind of not, and they may not get that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be very overwhelming. I remember when my brother, the day we picked him up when he got home, um, he was very irritable right away, and it was like, dude, I haven't seen you in 9 months, and it was, yeah, like we could tell right away, that something wasn't right. But we're trying to do things that, like, okay, this would normally cheer this person up, or this would, you know what I mean? And that's
Mhm.
not always the case. So also family members too, like ask questions to other, like people, other family members in the military, because most of the time, or of military members, because they can help guide you in the right direction of how to be as supportive as you can, because it is difficult for family too,
It
and
is
confusing. It's a confusing thing to navigate because there is no formulaic approach. Everybody's different because everybody's mind is different and unique, and everybody's gonna, some people, you can meet a combat vet that they just want to move on from the experience. They don't have anything to talk about, and it is what it is. And then there's some people that it's fused with the identity and it's very difficult to let go, so everybody is different, and everything has to be approached in that unique sense.
for sure. So, awesome. Any final thoughts? Because I feel like, just a lot of good information you have covered today, Jackie.
I think I talked a lot, so I think
Awesome.
that I'm all set, and I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about this, and hopefully the audio is good.
All right. So I told you all, Jackie started the Stay Chosen Foundation. Do you want to give a snippet of what that is, how people can find it, where it's a nonprofit, how they might be able to donate, like those
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
things, where they can
absolutely.
find you, all
Yeah,
that good
so
jazz?
absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, so me and my mom founded the Stay Chosen Foundation. And so the name is based off of Chosen Company, which is where my brother served. My brother passed away from like losing his battle with PTSD. And so they used to say stay chosen to each other, and that's where we got the name from, like him and the guys that he served with in that company. I always say that because it's spelt different. It's Chosin. And I have gotten messages a few times of like, hey, you spelt chosen wrong. And no, it's Chosen Company with an I. So, anyway, so Stay Chosen Foundation, it's a smaller nonprofit. We started in 2023. We have like a few fundraising events. We help right now vets with like small monetary like needs, whether that's like to get caught up on rent or substance use resources or mental health resources. We have connected recently with a vet to vet peer program. And this is all based out of Westchester, New York. But I live in Michigan, so I'm also happy to help people navigate and connect them to the right places, wherever. You can look up our website. It's www.staychosenfoundation.com. We have merch for sale. It's awesome shirts, Lookout World, and hoodies. And there's a donate button right there, and it kind of explains our mission that we are just focused towards helping veterans with PTSD and substance use disorders. We do have an ultimate goal of eventually opening up like transitional house for veterans that have been struggling with mental health or substance use, especially like while navigating that transition process that we were talking about too. So um, that's still the talks of it are still in the works. So donations help for sure because we're nowhere near the goal. But also if you are a family member or a veteran yourself looking for help or just guidance on um, resources, there is a contact us button and it goes right to me and I'll get an email. So I'd be happy to hear from you.
She has an email, everybody.
Look out, world.
All
And I
right.
do respond.
One more time for all the people. How do you spell it?
So it's stay, STAY, chosen, CHOSIN, foundation.com.
.com.
Dot
All
com.
right. Perfect. Jackie, I appreciate you so much. And I will put a link to the website in all of the comment to this episode as well. So you guys can cheat and you don't really got to go search because I will just attach it.
Great. So you made me spell that out multiple times.
I did.
I
So
appreciate
that
that.
if they don't want to wait, and when you scroll down to read the description, they can find it themselves.
And they're like, hold on, let me keep replaying that. How did she spell
Right.
that?
How did she spell? This is like, when way, way back when, when people had to
You remember a
listen.
number on the radio or whatever?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. When you had to listen to like somebody left you like a message on your answering machine, you had to like replay it.
I still do that. And oh my God. Yeah. And it like types out too. Like, when you like it, like whatever the word is, transcribes. And
Yes.
I'll still like, what the fuck did it say? And like restart it.
I feel like
Anyways.
Jackie and I just indicated we're old.
Yeah, basically. I'm not that old though. Uh,
Woo! All right. Um, as usual, I thank everybody for being here with us. Like us, subscribe, follow us on our Substack. On where else am I at? I am on Threads
Spotify?
and I am on Instagram. That's what it's called. So find us there. Like us, follow us, subscribe.
Arlene just indicated that she's older.
I am, because I can't remember things, and
Like me on the
brain fog is a
Facebook.
thing. Brain fog is a thing, yeah. And next episode we will be covering food insecurity and the mental health impact. So that will be what's up next, people. All right. Again, Jackie, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I look forward to future endeavors.
Awesome. I will talk to you later then.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unwinding with Support Group. Follow us on Substack. Give us a like, a follow. Give us a comment. Tell us what you hated, what you like, what you want us to talk about next. Let everybody know where they can find us too. But thanks for hanging out with us once again.